So I'm having a great time watching Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I haven't finished the whole show, but I wasn't going to do major spoilers anyway, so this is a review of like the first half, I guess. I'm honestly a little surprised it's by the same creator as Riverdale, because Riverdale, when it's good, is like so bad it's good, and I think this show is genuinely really good. Like, my line for good versus so bad it's good is a bit like murky, because like there's definitely a lot of absurd stuff and like stuff to make fun of in this show, and it's very campy, but I think it's legitimately good. Like, it's really funny and scary kind of at the same time, which is my favorite kind of scary and funny, I guess. I feel like making the witch society be so evil and creepy is just great. Like, usually I don't like stuff where we're supposed to be like identifying with evil characters, like I'm just not into it. But I don't know, for some reason I thought it was just so fun and original how we're like dropped into this world, and like Sabrina is so used to all of these witches in her life who like are doing really scary and evil things all the time. And so even if she's kind of like, you know, guys, I don't want to be as scary and evil as you are, I want to be better, like she's still kind of used to it, and it's kind of normalized. And like even the comparatively like good witches like Sabrina and Hilda like don't think anything of like giving people love potions or erasing people's memories or like all these like kind of skeevy things. And like I never get the impression that the show doesn't realize that those things are bad. Like with some fantasy shows that like you get the impression they didn't remember that like giving someone a love potion is kind of evil. You just get the impression that like Sabrina and Hilda don't really realize, because of like the context that they live in. Like compared to everyone else, they're very nice, so they just don't realize it. When I was a kid, the main thing that stuck with me about Sabrina the Teenage Witch was I thought Zelda's voice was really cool. Like, she had this really specific cadence in how she talked, where it sounded like she was trying to sound really fancy. And she also would emphasize words apparently at random, and it didn't sound like the way anyone would talk. But somehow I always wanted to try and just talk like her at every opportunity. Um, that wasn't a very good imitation, but I hope you remember what I mean if you watch the show. For some reason, the only thing that like this show has in common with the old Sabrina is that like Miranda Otto is kind of doing a somewhat similar weird voice. Um, she's also doing an accent which isn't her real accent, but which also doesn't match her like sister and nephew, who are both British. I don't know if that's going to be explained or if the show is just like, there's probably some explanation for why they have different accents. We're not gonna worry about it. Um, I guess like 10 years ago, back in the day, in Mad Men times, I used to read interviews with Kiernan Shipka, and like, when she was like 8 years old, she sounded like she was like a 50-year-old college professor. And I always thought that was really charming. And I think this character is kind of like that as well. I've seen people compare Sabrina to Hermione, and I feel like that is a good comparison. Like, she's such a distinctive character. Like, she's so, like, sort of, like, self-righteous, and, like, I really just even like the way that she speaks. Like, it's so different, and, like, she's just so bossy. And as previously mentioned, I like the fact that even though she's like a good witch, she's always doing all kinds of shitty stuff. But then like, you know, she's like, no, like you can't do that, it's wrong. She like turns around and does something horrible. I love Harvey, and I don't care who knows it. I've seen some people say that Ross Lynch is not attractive, but as someone who's watched Teen Beach Movie like 2,000 times, like, don't you dare say that to me. Like, some people even think Harvey is boring, but like, he isn't boring, he's just extremely helpless. Like, you get the impression that the only reason Harvey remembers to breathe is because Sabrina has probably done some kind of spell to remind him to do it. And that like the only way Harvey can drink water is if Sabrina like gently opens his mouth for him and pours the water in. Like, she's constantly casting protection spells on him and like erasing his memory so he doesn't have to remember anything that he didn't like. Like, if a cold wind blows in, Sabrina probably would cast a spell so that Harvey wouldn't be cold and he didn't have to put on a jacket. Like, if his pet hamster died, Sabrina would just bring it back to life so Harvey doesn't have to go through the grieving process. Like, the way that she treats Harvey is like he's like a baby. And like, for some reason, I think that's just like hilarious, and I kind of like, I super ship it. Like, if they ever try to bring in like, you know, a warlock who's Sabrina's like intellectual equal, and they're like, Sabrina, like, this guy can understand you, Harvey could never understand you, and that's given any sort of like weight, I would be furious. Like, Harvey and Sabrina forever. You get the impression that like Sabrina just likes having a boyfriend who's like extremely scared of everything and like can't fend for himself. Like, she just likes doing everything for him. I think that's kind of funny. One of the biggest laughs I got in this show was, you know, as usual, Sabrina was gonna do some like kind of evil and like really dangerous and crazy magic, just like, you know, to help Harvey. And somebody is like, Sabrina, you shouldn't do it. Everyone's telling her not to do it. And she's like, Harvey would do it for me. No, he wouldn't. Like, not because he doesn't love you, but because Harvey doesn't know how to do anything, you know? Her other human friends, Roz and Susie, are like kind of boring, but like, I don't think they're that bad. Like, at least I could tell you things about them, like their interests and like what their families are like. I feel like that's better than some shows. I'm kind of interested, but at this point a little bit critical of the situation with like Susie, who was like non-binary. Like, I read that the character was supposed to be a trans man, but the actor is non-binary, and I guess they were sort of inspired by them and they decided to make the character be non-binary. But so far, like, it just feels like instead of explicitly having somebody be trans, it feels like they're just kind of like, so far it's just like the character looks androgynous and is being bullied for looking androgynous. And like, I guess I just feel like that is a lot less unique, and like that's a story that's been portrayed in television like quite a bit more than like someone actually being trans. So yeah, I find that a little disappointing. Like, it's not like I mind the character being non-binary instead of a trans guy. Also, like, I'm not even trans, so I don't really get to have an opinion on this anyway. But it just feels like they're not actually like talking about it or like addressing it in a way that makes the character any like different than any other person who's gender non-conforming but doesn't actually identify as like trans or non-binary, you know? I will say I did like a recent scene where a psychic character addresses this character as a guy, and everyone is like embarrassed because they think the character is a girl, and the character is kind of like, so I will see how that develops. I assume something's going to happen, but as it is, I'm like, how do you even know that character is non-binary? Like, they never even said that. So basically my fave thing about the show that like sucked me in the most is Hilda and Zelda's like ridiculous relationship. Like, I don't really even know where to start, but it's based on, well, I don't know if it's based on it. It's exactly like that issue of Sandman where that one guy keeps killing his brother over and over all the time. Like, Zelda is just super mean to Hilda, and she just kills her all the time, like, whenever she's annoyed with her. And, like, I think to me the aspect of this that I like the most is just that Hilda is just, like, so rad. Like, she's still just kind of friendly. Like, she's just like, okay, cool, whatever. But like, she's still like, you know, is continuing to live with her sister, who is like so awful to her. And you know, another thing I like is I feel like it's common to kind of make a jerk character be really competent or cool or something, as if to make up for the fact that they're a jerk. But like, I feel like Zelda is actually worse than everything at Hilda. She's worse at everything than Hilda is. And like, Hilda is just so great, and like Zelda is just like terrible to her, and she's also like not as good at everything. And I don't know, I guess I'm just really fascinated by the idea of like two siblings, one of whom is like super over the top, like abusing the other one, just living together for hundreds of years, like just in kind of a normalized way. It's not something I've ever thought of before, but yeah, for some reason I just love that aspect of the show. I guess it's another thing that is both like really scary and really funny somehow. Um, so in Riverdale, there's an unrealistic business. It's Pop's Chocolate Shop. It's a diner. As somebody who loves diners, I can tell you that diners are not that popular, and a lot of my favorite classic old school diners, like train car booth diners, etc., have closed because people don't go to them that much. But even successful diners, like there are times when you don't want to go to a diner. Well, in Riverdale, everybody goes to the same diner all the time, and it's like the only restaurant. Like, no matter your class, like your interests, your age, your social group, or like why you're going out to eat, they always go to the same diner. Like, if you're on a date, you would go there. If you were like interviewing someone for a job, you would meet them there. If you're like a detective interviewing like a witness, you would like interview them at the diner. Like if you just had sex with somebody, then you would go to the diner afterwards. I guess that's like the most realistic one. If you're like writing a novel about your life, you would like write it at the diner. And like, yeah, it's the only business. And like sometimes it's like, that's not a time that you would go to the diner, or like that's not a person who would go to that diner, you know? Anyway, the business in Sabrina that everyone goes to is even like hilariously more niche, like to the point that I actually like it. And I wish it was a real place because I would go there all the time. It's kind of a diner, it's also a coffee shop, it's also a bookstore, and it's also horror movie themed, and all the employees have to dress like a character from a horror movie. And not only do like the main kids who are like into horror movies go there, but like a bunch of jocks go there. Like everyone goes there. And I wish that that was like the kind of business that was really successful in real life because it seems like an awesome place. I guess I should be talking about more of like the witch stuff, like the witch school and stuff. I guess I'm kind of in the minority, but like, I think it's okay, but that's not like my favorite thing. I guess like, you know, my absolute favorite thing is like Hilda and Zelda, and then for whatever reason, like Harvey and Sabrina's like incredibly like pathetic, twisted relationship. Like I don't think it's boring. Like it's so twisted, even if it's unintentional, that I'm just like I want to watch this teenage girl whose like ideal relationship is like with this boy that she practically has to like prop up with her arms so that he can sit up, you know? Anyway, I'm really enjoying the show. Maybe you should give it a try if you haven't seen it. Also, oh gosh, I was just considering maybe becoming the kind of person who says like and subscribe, but that's fine.